So thank you to everyone for being here, a part of this live virtual event, and to those viewing this recording. As always, it's wonderful to see so many new and familiar faces joining us. Our community is growing, and I'm grateful to all of you for showing your support time and time again and for sharing these programs with your friends, families, students, colleagues, and communities. Also, I want to give a shout out to my amazing parents who are always at these events and are always so supportive. And a thank you to all of the survivors and their families, especially Ruth Finkel Wade and her father, Sidney Finkel, for sharing Sidney's testimony with us. Welcome to 2G Tuesdays, a program that brings children of Holocaust survivors and their families' testimonies to people from all over the world. Today, we're fortunate to have Holocaust survivor Sidney Finkel joining us too, so thank you, Sidney, for being here today. My name is Michael Mantell. I'm a psychotherapist, educator, and a 3G, a grandchild of Holocaust survivors. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic lockdown, I started doing these fantastic programs. It began as a one-time private event for friends and family to honor my grandparents' memories and to combat anti-Semitic sentiments and rhetoric that I was hearing and witnessing all around me. I titled the first program Sundays with Survivors. It featured Holocaust survivors and their testimonies. Thank God the program was so successful that I hosted a second event and a third and so on. We continued to add more programs and ended up opening it to the public. And in 2021, following the success of Sundays with Survivors, I added this great program, 2G Tuesdays. These programs have featured dozens of Holocaust survivors and their family members, have reached thousands of people all over the world, and raised so far about $30,000 to support Holocaust education. I'm so grateful that this month we've been going 3 years strong and counting. Through this work, I've been fortunate enough to be able to contribute to other programs that promote Holocaust education, was featured on a TV news segment. I've co-wrote and contributed to articles and appeared on panels about Holocaust education and combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. I've created fundraising programs and engaged communities, started a chapter for alumni to combat anti-Semitism at my alma mater, and initiated a support group for Jewish therapists. But most importantly, I've made connections with survivors, their families, and this incredible community. My grandfather, Mickey Mandelovich, passed away before I was born, and my grandmother, Alice Diamond, in 2008. These programs and the connections I make with all of you help me connect with them, remember them, and make sure that their lives and the lives of all survivors and their families are never forgotten. Sadly, we're seeing anti-Semitic Jew hatred that parallel atrocities of the Holocaust, and in the state of Israel, no less. Thank God we have a country and an army and can defend ourselves. In addition to terror attacks and massacres, there are people who endorse and support Hamas and condemn Israel for defending itself and its people. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. We've seen this before, but our hope is this time it will be different, that it will end better, that we will defeat terror and terrorists without losing any more Jewish lives or any more lives for that matter. So while I think these programs are always relevant and important, it is extra significant today. In this program, Ruth Finkel Wade will be joined by her father, Holocaust survivor, Sidney Finkel, and they'll be sharing his testimony with us. I was fortunate enough to meet Ruth at an incredible conference for Jewish Holocaust survivors and their descendants. There were over 200 people at this conference, about 25 survivors, and children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of survivors as well. I'm grateful for that experience and the people I've had a chance to meet and stay in touch with. Ruth Finkel Wade is the daughter of Holocaust survivor Sidney Finkel. She's the editor and contributor to the award-winning book, The Ones Who Remember: Second-Generation Voices of the Holocaust. She is a docent and speaker at the Florida Holocaust Museum at St. Petersburg, Florida. And Ruth grew up in Chicago and spent 25 years living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She has one son named Ike, named after her father, Sidney's brother, Izzy. Her father, Sidney Finkel, is a Holocaust survivor from central Poland. He was almost 8 years old when World War II began and experienced the ghetto, slave labor, and Buchenwald concentration camp. After liberation, he went to England as one of the Windermere children. In 2006, he published Sevek and the Holocaust, the boy who refused to die. And he's spoken to thousands of students across the country, including last night at the University of Arizona. At 92 years old, Sidney lives in Tucson, Arizona with his life partner, Barbara. Following the presentation, we will open up the program for Q&A. As I always say, no matter how incredible these presentations are, and they always are, the Q&A portion makes this program so much more meaningful. It's the time for us to interact, ask questions, and share our own experiences. During that time, please feel free to raise your virtual hand by using the hand raise emoji. Type your questions or comments into the chat box for me to share for you, or you can unmute yourself. And just a few announcements before we begin. Our next 2G Tuesdays program will be a continuation of this program and scheduled for Tuesday, November 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Ruth will be joining us with two other contributing authors, Rita Ben and Ava Adler, from the award-winning book, The Ones Who Remember, Second Generation Voices of the Holocaust. And for this program, in honor of Sidney Finkel, if you would like to make a donation to the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center, you can visit jewishhistorymuseum.org/support. I will share this link in the chat, and I'll also put it in the follow-up email as well as in the description of this video. When you donate, please make sure to click yes, that you would like to make this donation in honor of someone, and you can enter Sidney Finkel and/or 2G Tuesdays in the space provided. As a grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I am eternally grateful for all of the survivors and their families who share their testimonies with all of us. To organizations like the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center that make Holocaust education a priority and their daily mission, and to friends like you who have made these programs so meaningful and successful. Your support means the world to me. With that, I want to thank you, and now would like to welcome Ruth and Sidney.
Hello, very happy to be here on this format. I'm just coming off of a talk yesterday, like you said, at the University of Arizona, where there was 200 people came in, and because it's an amazing thing to be in person and with people that I know. But this is okay. This is better than nothing, right?
This is okay too.
It doesn't replace face to face.
Right.
But I'm happy to do this for Ruthie, and I'm so glad to meet all of you people here. And you're all familiar with the Holocaust, and you're probably familiar with what my story, which is I come from a town called Piotrków Ivanowski. It's just about 30 miles south of Lodz, Lodz. And there was a 60,000 people, about 30,000, half of them were Jewish. And just imagine, in 1942, October 1942, when the trains came for us. And that was the opening of the massacre.
Can I jump in?
And I just want to say,
ahead again.
Someone mentioned it's a little hard to hear, so if,
Oh, you have to move in a little bit. But let me introduce you a little bit before we jump in, okay?
Okay, sure. Whatever.
Whatever. Well, first of all, I was going to go back to the thank yous to Michael. It was great to meet you, and I want to say I see all these wonderful faces that I know on here. So supportive of my friends are so supportive, and new friends from all over the place. So thank you for being here. And I also want to mention that there's no obligation to, make a donation, but when you do, what happens is every student that goes through the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center this year is going to receive a copy of my dad's book. So that's kind of his legacy. He wants to make sure that as many people as can get that book into their hands. So they'll get a free book because of generous donations. And I want to also I've got some slides and a video. So we'll show the video like we did last night too. That's so I'm going to share the screen. And
what a nice little boy. Lovely
exactly.
little boy.
Isn't he cute?
I wonder where I got the haircut.
I don't know. Where did you get the haircut? Yeah, this is my dad on the left. This picture here is right after the war. It's from this cover of his book, and it's him getting on a Royal Air Force bomber plane to go to Windermere, England, where he found refuge after World War II. And then, of course, on the right is
Sir Martin Gilbert wrote the book, The Boys.
The Boys. Yeah, there's a big book about it, as well as the movie, The Windermere Children. And then there he is on the right with his I call it his magic hat. And we'll talk about his hat in a little bit. I wanted to share this too because, well, my dad still, he's been speaking to hundreds and thousands of students all over the country. And these are just a few of the schools and the students that he talked to. And it was fun to show it last night. We actually had some people at our program who were one of these kids, they came and they saw him when they were in school, and now they were coming back with their own kids, and that was really super exciting. And this is again him waiting to get on the planes to go to England right after the war. You can see he had a little attitude.
Yeah,
does.
We never saw a plane on the ground. We knew plenty of planes that would drop bombs on us. But here there was a big bomber. It was just like, how can a big, huge thing like that lift off and go into the air? It was amazing. It was a little frightening too.
As long as we're on a tangent, though, I remember you telling me that you were really proud of yourself because a lot of the kids were getting airsick, but you didn't.
Yeah, they got that's right. The big boys got sick, and I didn't. That gave me a lot of satisfaction because there was always like a fight between the big boys and the little boys, but we all loved each other.
Yeah. So Sevek was my dad's name, and he was not even 8 years old when World War II started. And I feel like your story is one of dehumanization. It shows what happened to this 8-year-old kid, and by the time who stopped, no more education, no more school at the first grade level, who only is honed to survive. And 5 years go by, and the Nazis have succeeded in making you feel like you're not much more than an animal. And going through the story really helps people, and especially kids, understand what happens when we dehumanize people and treat them as less than human. This is this producer here in Tucson for Arizona Public Media. She made these short videos, stories of many of the survivors here, and they aired when the Ken Burns documentary, The U.S. and the Holocaust, was playing. They were preludes to that, and so I'm gonna stop sharing. And Michael's gonna bring up the video for you to watch, and it'll give you a really good understanding of his story in just 10 minutes.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share that. I just want to say, Ruth, we would love to see both of you on the screen a little bit more. I don't know if it's possible to move over slightly. And then also some people mentioned it's a little hard to hear at times.
I'm not sure how to turn up our volume.
Yeah. So Ruth, if you're able to move slightly more into the camera, more towards the center. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share.
Okay. Let me see. Volume.
And I'm going to go ahead and share the video now.
Okay, and I just turned the volume up. Hopefully that's better.
Sidney Finkel was born Sevek Finkelstein in Lodz, Poland. When Germany invaded Poland, he was 7 years old.
My city was bombed, and we were down in the cellar, and this is the first time I knew what it was to feel real fear. And we went into this little village, and it was crowded. There was lots of people from my hometown there. Then all of a sudden I heard these airplane noises coming from the sky. And as I looked up, these planes came flying down, and they were so low that I swear I could reach out my hand and touch them. And they were shooting their machine guns. And I was frozen to the spot. I couldn't move. Then I felt my mother grab me by my shoulders, and she knocked me down to the ground. And then she did something really fantastic. She lay on top of me. She covered me completely with her body so as to protect me. And after a while, I stood up, and I saw a lot of people with limbs missing, you know, they were burned. And I heard my name Sevek being called, and my father and I met each other, and we ran into a nearby forest.
The Nazis forced Jews into a ghetto. Sevek's whole family squeezed into one room. It was hard to find food.
Also, my sister, the one I loved so much, she was pregnant, and she was in a lovely Polish family came to us and said, we're going to put her into a Catholic hospital and save her. And that's what we did. I later learned that somebody in the hospital informed the Germans that there was a Jew there pretending to be a Pole. They came in, and she had delivered a boy. They took him and they threw him out the window. And then they took her to the Piotrków cemetery and shot her.
Then the Nazis began deporting Jews from the ghetto to concentration camps.
So we watched the train come to a town south of us, and the Jews are emptied out and put onto these trains. And they say the U-turn is going to come. But they also tell us that about 1,500 of us would be able to stay behind. Now we were about 30,000 at that point. So everybody wanted to have the job, right? So I worked in a glass factory. The day came where the trains were there for us. So what you do, you pray. I mean, but you know, it will always stay in my mind. It's not a prayer. People would fall on the floor, and they would bang their head against the wall, and they would cry out. And that's when I lost my faith in God. There was no help. There was no help.
On the train platform, Sevek's brother, Izzy, bribed a German guard. He, Sevek, and their father were allowed to stay behind to work in a factory. 2 of his sisters were also allowed to leave. But one of them, Franya, couldn't bear to be parted from their mother. The 2 boarded a cattle car together and died at Treblinka.
the war is almost over, and the German army is retreating through Russia and Poland. And we figured the war is going to come to an end, and we're going to be liberated in our hometown, so we can start it in our hometown. But they have different ideas. They take there's 2,000 of us left. And now, for the very first time, I'm marched into a station where there's just a train with like cattle carts waiting for me. And I just don't want to go in, and they throw me in, and I'm separated from my father and my brother. And inside is, you can't sit, it's nothing to drink, no washroom facilities.
He blocked out the memory of that 3-day journey to Buchenwald. Sevek shut down his emotions to survive the cold, starvation, and brutality. 4 months later, his father found him.
He was glad to see me, but I didn't feel any affection for him. I just felt like old people had no right to live. Didn't show any caring for him. He was on his way to a place underground that made missiles. That's the last time I saw him.
The war was almost over, and the Nazis wanted to kill as many Jews as possible before the prisoners were liberated.
We're told to go out on the march, and about 3,000 prisoners, including half of them Russian soldiers. The gates of Buchenwald opened up, and we were going, so it's a beautiful day, and we begin to march towards Weimar. That's the next big town where the railroad stations was. Anyway, in front of me was a father, Hungarian father and son. This was an 8-mile trip, and the father pushed himself away from the son, and he said, and fell into the ditch. And the son was shrieking for him to stand up. And there was the guard with the rifle, and we heard a shot, and that was the end. So we came to Weimar, beautiful town, and another train awaits us. See, a lot of the very next day that we left Buchenwald, the American army arrived. We went on a train ride of 3 or 4 weeks, open cars, and except for the first day when we had a loaf of bread, we had nothing. That's when we ate grass, and we saw people eat human flesh. And it was just, that was the worst part of my experience. The Germans were losing the war, of course, and they didn't know where to go, because if they wanted to go one place, it was already too late. It was already occupied by the Allies. You see, so they just moved back and forth.
The train finally stopped at Theresienstadt concentration camp, where Sevek was liberated. He was very sick with typhus and had a long recovery. One day, lying in bed, he heard his name being called from the street.
So I run to the window, and lo and behold, there's my brother walking the street shouting my name, because he had heard that there was a kid from Buchenwald that had come. We never grieved. We never grieved. We were told to forget about it.
interview with Sidney Finkel will be available on the Arizona Public.
Oh, geez. There we go. Got it. So that's you know, a capsule of the story, and we're gonna kind of take you through some other parts of it, give it some more context. So my dad grew up in central Poland in Piotrków Trzemanowski. You were the youngest of 5 children. Your father made you feel very special. Your family adored you. Your father owned a lumber yard and you lived in an apartment with 6 rooms and running water, very comfortable. There was a little bit of anti-Semitism, but a pretty comfortable, normal life until the war started. Do you have any specific memories of your life before the war that you want to share?
Well, well, before the war, we lived in an apartment in Piotrków, and I just loved the town, and I would just walk streets, and sometimes I had some money, I would go in and buy myself some delicacy, and I had a lot of friends, and I felt myself very loved and adored, and I was very proud because my dad was well known, and he was a rich man, spending on the economy, you know. But I was waiting to go to school. I went to regular school. Most kids my age went to Haida, right? But my parents wanted me to wait till I was like 12 or so, and then I would go to school and I would learn Hebrew as a language. That's how my sisters and brothers were. And it was never to happen.
Yeah, so this is his mother and his Aunt Rachel. And his Aunt Rachel was always the person who would protect him when the few times he did get in trouble.
Right, she did.
And your brother Izzy, who is an officer in the Polish Army and 17 years older, and he, had this handsome uniform, and my son is actually named after Izzy because he was a hero, at least to me. He saved Sevek many times. And this is his sister Rania, who is 20 years older, who you heard mentioned in the video, that was pregnant and was informed on. This is her right here.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful young woman, and my aunt too. We're living a good life.
Yeah. And then September 1st, 1939, the Germans invade Poland. And this picture is the town where they went to seek refuge in, called Sulejo. Sulejo, okay. And 30 days later, the Polish retreated, the Germans invaded, and the family was moved from their 6-bedroom running water home, or not 6-bedroom, 6-room, to 1.5 rooms with no running water in the ghetto. 15,000 Jews were moved into an area that was supposed to be 5,000 people living. So they were really actually fortunate to have 1.5 rooms because many people found themselves homeless. And Piotrków Trzemanowski was actually has the honor of being the first ghetto that the Germans did in Poland, right?
Yes.
What are some things you remember about the ghetto?
Well, in the ghetto, and first 2 years, we lived like a normal life, not really normal, but there was no. We observed the holidays, uh, kept kosher, and especially uh, Friday. That would be one of the best days. We would prepare chewing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it was like a stew. And we had a chicken and we put it into the thing. And I would carry it to the bakery. The bakery closed down for the Shabbos. And the heat from the oven, from the wall, uh, baked the stew. And then Saturday morning, after services, you could see families walking to the bakery and taking their pot and bringing it home. And that was delicious.
Was that when you were living in the ghetto, or was that
When we
before?
lived in the ghetto,
Oh.
the first 2 years were bad, but compared to what was to come, it was not. My father had influence. Izzy, my brother, was definitely one of the elite people that, including the Jewish police, and but there was no school. There was no school. School was forbidden. There was no school at all. There were some brave teachers that did teach, but I don't know why I never enrolled in it, you know.
But then things got bad. So tell us about like the time that you got in trouble for getting into a fight and the Nazi held a gun to your head.
Yeah, I still can't recollect it exactly, but we were unloading a truck, a German truck, and I would go up to the truck, and the guy would put a sack on my back, and I would carry it. But the big guy on the truck was playing games, and he took the sack and he threw it at me, and it fell down. And I was really mad. I was ready to go up to the truck and beat him up. But the German that was supervising us didn't like me, so he told me to stand by a well, a water well, and he took out his gun, and I was just standing there waiting to be shot. But the president of the ghetto, the Jewish Mr. Wasserman, saw what was going on. He came in and he talked to the German, and he let me go. Although when my dad learned about it, he was not very happy with me, you know. But to me, it was all games.
But then when you found out about your sister Rania,
Yeah,
that was bad for you.
that was the worst thing that I actually experienced. I loved my big sister. She was like a second mother to me, and she always protected me. And when I learned what happened to her, I think, did you say that she was pregnant and she delivered a boy? Some Paul in the hospital went to the Gestapo and told them that there was a Jew there pretending to be a Catholic, and they took the baby and they threw him out the window, and they took my sister to the Jewish cemetery where they shot her.
And what was your reaction?
I was just beside myself. So I couldn't, even to this day, I can't believe the horror of it. I just rolled underneath the bed, and I just cried and cried and cried. My mother and father tried to console me, but I just couldn't be consoled. And the funny thing is that I would never cry again. Horrible things would have happened to me, and I wanted tears, but no tears would come. That was like the worst.
So then the work permits, 2,000 people could stay in the ghetto, and your brother Izzy and your dad and Franya and Lola, your sisters, could stay. Your mother had to go on the train, and you were supposed to go on the train. Why didn't you go on the train?
Well, we were standing in line, and my father and Izzy, my brother, my dad turned to me and he said, Izzy and I are going to stand shoulder to shoulder, and you stay behind us, and we will hide you with our bodies. And I did that. And this Nazi officer came, and he saw me, and he became very angry and whipped me. But Izzy was so brave. He just went up to him, talked to him in German, and put something in his hand. I don't know what, but it must have been a diamond or something like that. So he let us go to our factory. Where my father procured us to go to this factory. That was if you had a permit to be there, it would save your life, right? And so I was there. I was the only kid. Everybody, another 20 or so Jewish people were there. There were no children. I was the only one, and they had to hide me up in a loft because they were afraid that the Poles workers would inform on me and they would get a bread or something like that. So, but in the evening they would bring me down. I was with the rest of the Jewish workers. And one day, while I'm down there, huddling next to a fireplace, the German officers came in, and I knew this was going to be the end of it, but they were looking for a shoemaker. They found one shoe and they wanted to have another one. And the shoemaker said, well, I'll be happy to make you a pair of shoes. And they ignored me.
Ooh, lucky.
But it wasn't that easy. There was a Polish policeman came and one that my brother knew, he knew them, and he thought it would be okay if they took away all whatever money they had left. They took them, and therefore my dad said, "This Poland is not a place for Jews. You have an uncle in America, and that's where you survive it. Just get in touch with them."
When you were at this selection for the train, was also the last time you saw your mother. And what did she tell you?
My mother said that I had to survive, that I was, excuse me, I was their future. I was their life. And my little sister, the younger sister came over and she kissed me and told me we would see each other again. And that was the last time I ever saw her.
This is a picture of a cattle car from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. And when you think cattle car, you think of dehumanization. You know, it's the ultimate symbol of dehumanization. It's a cattle car, not a people car. And after the selection and you lost your mother and so many of the people from your town to Treblinka in the gas chambers, and then 3 years, then a few years later, the Nazis decided to liquidate the rest of the ghetto. And that's when you had to go on the train to Buchenwald. And one of the things that happened with us was when in the year that the museum opened, we went that summer, and we went to the museum, and it was me and my brother and one of my nephews and his wife, and walking through the museum, and Dad was very much the tour guide, very calm and collected, and showed us the glass wall with the names etched with all the lost towns, and pointed out Pietrkov And then you get to this cattle car and you have to walk through it to get to the next part of the exhibit. So what happened when we got to the cattle car?
I broke down. That was the ultimate symbol of my unhappiness. Was the train? If you're talking about the Holocaust, you have to talk about trains because they couldn't do it. How do you murder 6 million people? You know, it sounds impossible. People say it didn't happen, and in a sense, they're right. It couldn't have happened. I still don't understand how you could. I mean, the trains were the things. The trains were the death trains. That was, if they didn't have the trains, they couldn't murder us so efficiently.
Yeah. So the train took you to Buchenwald. We heard on the video that you were separated from your parents. And this is another dehumanization thing. Now Buchenwald doesn't do tattoos on the arm. That's only Auschwitz. But you did become a number, 25381. You weren't a name anymore. And these are the ID cards that we have from that time. And in Buchenwald, a few things happened in Buchenwald. One was the underground. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's even in the worst of situations, there's always some light. There's some goodness, and there were people, the organizations there that wanted to save the young people, so they took us into a special barrack, and we got better treatment, and they encouraged us. Well, but the war was coming to an end. It was you could hear the American artillery. They wanted to take everybody from Buchenwald and kill them, and they had orders to do that, but they didn't. They couldn't. It was too fast. The Americans came too fast, so they wanted us just out of Buchenwald into Weimar, where the trains were waiting. And here we go again. We're going on a death march.
But before you do that, can we tell them about your dad?
I don't like to talk about it because it hurts too much.
Can I read what you wrote in your book?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't want me to, I won't.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is I'm sorry, this is painful for you to hear again. But Sevek wrote this in his book about his last meeting with his father. I have an indelible memory of my last meeting with my father. He came across me as I was standing with my friends in the compound. My father cried with joy when he saw me. He hugged me as tears ran down his cheeks. He had lost a lot of weight and he looked very weak and emaciated. He took a piece of bread from the knapsack from his shoulder and he handed it to me. The gesture of the bread showed his great love for me, since these were the only provisions he had for his transport out of Buchenwald. I took the bread, but I felt agitated and uncomfortable. Here standing before me was the one person in the world that I loved more than any other, and yet I was incapable of feeling affection. I bore no resemblance to the son that he knew. Sevek, the fun-loving, affectionate, boyish kid, was dead. I now was more like an animal with instincts only for survival. Likely, he was being sent to his death. I am unsure under what conditions we met, and yet I was silent. I turned my back on my own father without giving him the slightest bit of encouragement. Who was I? What kind of an animal had I become in the camps? This encounter was so powerful that it stayed with me for the rest of my life. Guilt plagued me and caused me to believe that I had betrayed my father. I left my father standing alone and walked back to my block to be with the young people. Old people had no right to live. They were taking resources from the young. I thought to myself, my God, I was beginning to think just like the Nazis. But in 2012, we actually visited Buchenwald. And one of the things that I'm so admire about you, Dad, is your ongoing processing and healing, and always thinking about, how you can heal. And one of the things we did on that trip is, so in this picture here, in the background, you took us to the place where you thought you had that last encounter with your father. And well, you want to tell us what you did?
Go ahead.
You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Well, he had us all put our arms around each other, and then he spoke to his father, and you said, here we are with your grandchildren, and I survived and I lived, and I'm so sorry for what happened. I love you. I know you would be so proud of me, and I'm so sorry. And I just want you to know how much I love you. So you turned that terrible haunting into this really positive experience. And how did you feel afterwards?
I felt better. I felt good because, I had Ruth, I had Leon, my son, and my wife Jean, and we could hug each other and cry on each other's shoulder, and it felt good. It didn't fantastic, but it felt good. Like I spoke to my father and I showed him that he lives in us.
Right. And then what's happening in this other picture with you and the gate?
Oh, it's we would stay on a pelt plots. That's on a we would each day we would go onto the what would you call it, the pelt plots plaza,
The plaza, yeah.
and what do we talk about?
Well, you're working in and out.
Oh yeah. It's just I looking out, by the gate. You could see they had a zoo with animals. They had flowers and beautiful homes and things like that. And I said, "Wow, if I could only go to the gate." So when we went back to the Buchenwald, what I did was I would march out into the camp, and then I would march back in. I said, in and out. I am free. I don't have to stay behind
Right.
barbed wires, and that was good. Another thing that was also good was the German staff were really wonderful, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, the young German were great, and it helped me heal my hatred for the Germans.
Well, since we're talking about that, do you want to say something about forgiveness?
And I learned when I began to speak. I learned that there's only one solution to my problems and to come to a healing place, and that was to forgive. Forgive the worst atrocities, even them throwing my little baby out the window. I had to forgive that, not for their sake, but for my sake. And it kind of worked. It worked. But I think the most powerful thing was meeting with the young German in Buchenwald.
Okay. Well,
that's our final. This was the worst. This was absolutely the worst. Just look at this. We were there for 3 weeks. Forget about toilets or anything. Starving, absolutely starving, eating grass, people eating flesh. And I'm there.
yeah, it turns this is an actual part of the train that he was on. There, it turns out there are actually some other kids from Buchenwald and from his town, Pietrkov, were on this train. Found that out later, but it ended up at Theresienstadt, where you had typhus and recovered, and then your Izzy found you. How did it feel to be reunited with your brother?
It felt great. I was just so happy to see him. He had a knapsack and he had chocolate and other goodies. It was just amazing, but the good part didn't last long. When I learned that my mother was gone, my two sisters were gone.
Yeah, lots of loss. Your father.
How do you reconcile yourself with that?
Yeah, that's hard.
This is a good picture of her. This is some of the boys. All of these boys here were on the train.
Well, these are the kids from Bunce Court. So this is from this on the left here is Windermere. This is you getting on the Royal Air Force bomber and going to Kilgarth Estate in Windermere, where you started to become rehumanized. What were you like after the war? Were you a nice, sweet, easy kid to be around?
No, I was angry. I was always have a lot of anger in me and didn't trust anybody or anything. And I was not a happy camper.
But what happened when you were at Bunce Court for a couple of years, boarding school, and you started to get educated and you learned English and you started to make friends and become more civilized, and you learned to play the piano. And what was it like at Bunce Court that helped you to heal?
This school was amazing. It was a school that was transported from Germany. The principal and knew what was coming, and she managed to move the kids and everything to England.
Yeah, this was the school before the war.
So I didn't know how to tell time. I didn't know my alphabet, and I was slowly there. There was so much love and caring there, but by the staff that I began to learn, and we loved reading. They put on plays that I loved, William Saroyan, and still, I just loved reading it.
And you got a bicycle, right? You got a bicycle?
Yeah, I got a bicycle, so I could ride it to a store which was like 2 miles away, and you could buy pies, English pies.
Okay. So this picture on the left is, I think, 1951, when you came to the United States and started your life here. And then this picture in the middle is from a year ago at my son's Ike's wedding. And I like to include this little story because my dad didn't always talk about his experiences. As a matter of fact, he never talked about his experiences. We weren't allowed to ask questions. And when I was pregnant with Ike 30 years ago, hard to believe, I wanted to know more about my grandparents, Leib and Feiga. And I asked my dad, and I decided I was going to be persistent. And for some reason, you decided that it was okay time for you to talk about it. And you came and visited me I lived about 2 hours away. And you told me you'd never told anyone these stories, right? And you started talking about your experiences. Do you remember that?
Yes, so very much so. You were pregnant, and you're the one that decided that the Holocaust Museum was opening up, and you decided that we should go visit.
Mhm.
And so we did with the whole family, went to Washington, D.C. And at first, when you walk in, it's more educational. Have pictures of history and so on. But then, from the corner of my eyes, I could see the kettle car,
Mhm.
and then I broke down. I cried, and my family was there to hug me, and
And then I talked to my brother, Leon, after you talked to me, and he asked you to speak at a school,
right.
and you said, okay. Did you want to?
No, but I didn't want to disappoint my son. So I said yes. And I went in and I had notes and things, uh, but uh,
You just started talking.
yeah,
And you never stopped,
no.
which is a good thing. And this picture on the right is Dr. Sidney Finkel, who received his honorary doctorate from St. Xavier University in Chicago because of all the work that you did in speaking with students and schools. And you gave the commencement speech as well to standing ovation. That was really special, a really special day.
Yeah, it was my 80th birthday. I was 80 years old.
Wow. And I found out that he said in his talk that he didn't get his GED. He said, I can't believe I'm getting my doctorate degree. I didn't get my GED until I was in my 50s. And we all kind of laughed. I had no idea that he, hadn't gotten his GED until then. I think most of you probably know this or feel this way too. The survivors, the most important thing they think they can do, and the biggest kind of screw you to Hitler, is to have families. And so this is a picture from almost 2 years ago, Dad's 90th birthday, and all the family was here, was celebrating with you. And here you are and our family is actually even bigger than this now, but and there you are in your magic hat. Tell us about your hat.
We have in Tucson, we have survivor meetings, and unfortunately, there's very few of us left. There used to be like 30 or so, and there's like 5 now left. But I came into the meeting, and this one survivor, he was wearing a hat, the Holocaust survivor. And I said, wow, this is it. This is it. This is what I have to have. I was thinking about a hat, but I never had the courage to do it. But he did, and I owe him a lot. The hat has been extremely important into my well-being. If only survivors are here, get a hat. My doctor says I have a problem and it needs surgery. And he says, well, at your age, I don't know if we want to do it, but we are going to do it because you're wearing this hat and you're speaking to kids. And everybody treats me just.
He said, we need to keep you alive.
Yeah. That's everybody treats me wonderfully. People come up, they shake my hand. We can tell them a little story. If they're youngsters, I give them my book. And it's somebody, I'm proud of it. I'm proud of being a survivor. And this shows it better than anything else. This question of anti-Semitism or so on, I have to say that we don't experience any of that in Tucson yet.
You're very fortunate, but do you want to say something about, I know Michael said something at the beginning about the Israeli conflict, but as a Holocaust survivor, what do you want to say about that,
But which,
about Israel?
about Israel? I said that last night. I said, we are not victims. We're no longer victims. A train isn't waiting for us to take us to the ovens. We have a powerful army, we have a state, and we can defend ourselves. And we are who we are, and we're not to be afraid of who we are. And we owe it to Israel. I believe that if Israel had existed in the 40s, there wouldn't have been a Holocaust. No way. It would have been a way of getting an army in or something like that. But so Israel is extremely important to us. But again, we don't have to be scared, afraid, because we have plenty of resources, and America is still a great country, and it's still anti-Semitism compared to Poland is like a cup of tea. You want to know about anti-Semitism? Let me talk to you about Poland. Then I was just a little boy. I was standing in line because I wanted to buy something, and the told "Oh, he's a Jew. Don't serve him." This is just one. I would go to school, and the boys would be throwing stones at me, and I didn't understand why they were doing that. And then I figured out that it's because I look Jewish. So when I went to school, I used to take my hands and cover my face so they wouldn't see that I was Jewish. That's anti-Semitism.
What do you want to, what final things do you want to say? Tell us about legacy. What do you want to do with the rest of your life?
Exactly what I'm doing now. I'm very happy to have Ruth. I mean, every parent dream is to have an offspring that carries on their work. And she is doing a fantastic job of doing. You should have seen her yesterday. It was 200 people there. And her book, too, nobody would think that it would be this popular, but it's a very popular book. It's great,
So legacy, keeping it moving forward. And yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for having us. And I don't know if we have, thank you for, and I don't know if do we have time? I think there are some questions. Do we have some time?
Yeah, we have all the time you will give us. So this is an open-ended program, so people hopefully will stay on for as long as they can. And Sidney, we have you here, and I'm so grateful to you and to Ruth for doing this. I want to start by saying that I so after meeting Ruth, I watched her presentation. So I listened to your testimony from her words, and it was heart-wrenching and amazing for me to experience your testimony through Ruth. And then, of course, I got your book, and I'm reading your words, which was so intense. And going back to some of the things that you wrote, again, understanding the Holocaust has been something I've been trying to wrap my head around for so long. It's something that's so overwhelming, I don't think we ever can. And then this started, a little over 2 weeks ago in Israel. It was a war like we've never seen in my lifetime. And I started to go back to some of the words in your book and some of the things that you described. And I can only think, wow, this reminds me of what we were just hearing about in the news. And I still can't believe it. And then having the opportunity to hear you share your own testimony tonight, to me, this is just one of those blessings that I'm so grateful for. And one of the reasons why I'm so happy that I had this opportunity to start this randomly. It was just, I said, we had COVID, I have a lot more time, let me hold this one-day event. And it turned into something beautiful where I'm meeting people and hearing your testimonies. And there's so many things that you mentioned that bring a lot of questions to my mind. I want to also open the floor up if anybody has any questions as well. If anyone wants to write in the chat, I do have a few questions in the chat, so I'll read those. If anyone also has any questions, they could unmute themselves or raise their virtual hand, that hand raised emoji. I know Rosa has her hand raised, so I'm going to let her speak.
First of all, thank you for sharing your story, Sidney. I'm from Malta. It's past 2 a.m. here, but I mean, it was worth staying up for and listening. You're an international treasure, really.
Where are you?
Malta.
Malta, wow.
It's a small island close to Italy.
Yeah.
Wow, the Jews everywhere.
Yeah, thank you. And my question is connected to that. I'm new to this, so forgive me if it's information that is already known. You said, Michael, that the recording will be available after this. Where will it be shared so that I can share it on social media and in other groups that I'm in, please?
That'll be wonderful. Yeah, I'll be sharing a link. It'll be posted on YouTube, and you'll have the link where you can watch it and share it as well.
Is there a channel or something? Sorry, I'm totally new to this. I just saw the advert on Facebook.
Yep, on YouTube. No, beautiful. Thank you. I'm so happy it reached you. So I'll post it to my YouTube channel, and I'll share that link with you, so you can click on the link to watch it. You can share it to others.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think there was a question about what happened to Izzy. I thought I saw in the chat.
Yeah.
Izzy has a fantastic story. If we have time, I just take a few minutes. He was in the war. He was wounded, and he was bleeding, and
he was going to die.
He was going to die, and he figured, he crawled to the road where the German army petrol was, and he talked to them in German. They thought he was a Polish German. You know, they picked him up. They took him to a pharmacy. That was his only medical thing, pharmacy. And the pharmacy called a priest to give him his last rites. And he said something that would really always live my life. He says, please, I've lived all my life as a Jew. Let me die as a Jew. Isn't that fantastic? And they picked him up and they took him to a German hospital where he got good treatment. This was the beginning of the war, you know. And so he was a wounded soldier, and that gave him some privileges in the ghetto. Because he was a wounded soldier, he could leave the ghetto and go to the Red Cross and get some help.
So then he could do some smuggling and make some contacts.
Yeah.
But after the war, he stayed in England. So when 1951, Dad came to the US, but Izzy stayed in England and raised his family there. And we're still very close with them.
And can you also share how it was that Izzy, since he was older, would still make it over to England with you? Because I know that's in your book and not something that you share.
Yeah, he was obviously he was older than 16, but he was a counselor, and the English government accepted him. And we came to England on a temporary type of a visa. You know, we would stay there for a few months and then go someplace else. But the government changed their mind and let us stay in England. And there's a very big survivor movement. It's called the Boys. The Boys in the Train. There was almost 1,000 of us. We formed a union. So we had relatives, you know. If we had a symbol, if we had a wedding or something, we didn't have people father, brothers wanted to come and join us, but we were a family. And so they've done some wonderful literature. And the book was written by Martin Gilbert. So Martin Gilbert was a famous British author, was Churchill's biographer.
And it's they formed the boys formed the 45 AIDS Society to help each other, like Dad was saying, and it's still around. They still have reunions every year, and now there's fewer survivors, but children and grandchildren continue on with it. There's a question from Karen.
Oh, we had a question, I think Julie. Why did you decide to leave England to go to the US?
I had an uncle here, and I just thought I would have more opportunity in America. And everybody wanted to be in America. When I got my visa to come to this country, I was the happiest guy in the world. I was jumping up and down in London because I was coming to America.
And yes, Karen, you have your hand raised if you want to unmute yourself.
I just want to thank you all so much. This was just so moving and beautiful. And I know it's painful, but we feel your pain. You share it with us to lighten it for you. That's number one. And number two is I have Martin Gilbert's book, The Boys, and I read it.
Really?
Yes.
Really? I'm in that. You can read about me.
I read about you, and I didn't know it was you until you told us. So, and I collect memoirs of survivors. I have maybe 250 or more, and I would love to buy your book with your signature because that is something we're passing through the generations. So you're working.
Where are you at?
I live in Florida, South Florida.
That's where Ruth lives in Florida.
So Karen, I think I gave you
yes.
Yeah,
I have your address.
Yeah, so email me and we'll make it happen. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. And Michael, what a great job you do. Thank you so much for your service.
Mike.
Thank you. Oh, I hear my fabulous dad. Yeah, my loving parents. I'll send them on. Yeah.
Hi, Sidney. Thank you very much for sharing. I listened to you and I understood something today that I never understood about dehumanization. My mother told me when she got to the camp and the Polish girls who were there, my mother was from Hungary and they came much later to the camps. And you talk about dehumanization. The girls greeted my mother and they said to my mother, you see the smoke over there? That's your parents. And that's how they greeted, and now I understand a little more after listening to you, what you said. And, I appreciated that, and also one more thing you said about forgiving. My mother always said she forgives, but she'll never forget. And, thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. It was amazing. Thank you, Sidney.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you still have a little bit more in you, we have a lot more questions. I don't know if that's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So one question was, what part did Judaism play in your family's life, in your life before, even during the Holocaust and after?
Well, before we were modern. We're modern. Spoke Polish at home. What was the question?
You're Jewish. Yeah.
We were typically Jewish, of course. In every holiday, we were observing. We had kosher in the house.
What about after? What about after and now?
After what?
Now, how do you identify?
I identify as a Jew 100%, but I'm not religious. I think this is what I tell the kids. this is one of the casualties of the Holocaust, was that it robbed my mind of belief in a higher power. I cannot believe it, because I saw the most religious people were the first ones to be shot. And the religious people had no connection with the outside. So in order to survive, you had to have contact with Polish people. You see?
Oh, so they were so insular, they didn't have those connections like your father and
Yeah.
Izzy had. Interesting.
And I know you were only about 8 years old at the time, but what were your experiences with anti-Semitism before, or what did you notice around you that may have seemed like things were changing?
What did I see around me?
Like, what did you see more and more anti-Semitism as you got older, or was it always there?
It was always there. The Poles were born with it. I mean, it's not fair to say that of them now, because they're pretty good to Israel. And the attitude has changed.
And there are many Poles who hid people and did
Yeah.
good things.
Yeah, but very, very few. I would say that 90% were anti-Semitic and loved what the Germans were doing to the Jews. But they couldn't wait for them to go on the train so they could knock in and go to their homes and steal everything that they could. Not all, but less educated ones especially. And then there were some very nice Polish people that helped us a lot. But you know who was the nicest one? The Deutsche, the German of Polish descent. No, the Poles of German descent. When the Germans came in, they identified as Germans and they had all the privileges, but they were better to us.
Well, that's interesting.
And did you find any other family after the Holocaust? Did you reunite with anyone? And did you ever go back to Poland?
No, I never went back to Poland.
We were supposed to go during March of the Living, but it was during COVID, so it got canceled. But yes, you found other family members. So you're Frida and
I have two cousins. That's all. No, we had one more cousin in Israel.
and your sister Lola.
Yeah. They were very much into the Polish culture. They only spoke Polish. They loved Poland. But they also were Zionists. And they were
Who was you're talking about your cousin in Israel?
My sister was supposed to go to Palestine.
Oh, this is Rania.
Yeah, and my dad wouldn't let her go. And there were, after the war, there was her best girlfriends and so on were in Israel.
I think that's how we got the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other questions do you have?
So you haven't been back to Poland since, but do you know if there was anything, at least in your hometown, were there any plaques or memorials put up, or was there any attempt to repair the relationship with the Jewish community or Jews around the world?
There's actually a group that does go back to Pietrków almost every year. And they have been working on cleaning up the Jewish cemetery. And the synagogue there, I think, is a library now. But there have been some attempts at
There's connections between them. The Polish officials happen to be very cooperative and nice. As long as they know the Jews are not going to move in, they love them.
we did have, well, his, my dad's Aunt Rachel, who I showed you the picture of, she survived the war and went back to Pietrkov, and the people in the town, some of the people were afraid that she was, she and two other people were going to reclaim their property, and so they were actually murdered. So that was a signal for others to not go back.
And it happens a lot. There's a famous one, I can't remember the name, but there were a lot of Jews were burned alive after the war.
Yeah, there were horrific things going on in Poland even years after the war. That's right. And then, so you went for a long time, it sounds like, without sharing your Holocaust testimony. What was like to first say it, and what was the impetus? What got you to finally kind of open up, and what was that experience like for you?
What?
Well, why did you start speaking?
Well, like Lucy said about the Holocaust experience, Holocaust Museum experience. When I liked it. I liked doing it. It helped me. I felt the more I talked, the more healing I got. And so I just something that I do, and I don't turn anybody down. I speak in churches. And here in Tucson, we have some wonderful people that really are there. I don't see any sign of anti-Semitism.
Maybe I can ask two more questions and then we can wrap up. But this one would actually be for Ruth. What was it like for you to first hear your father's story, and what did that do for you? Did that change anything in your life? I mean, I'm assuming it must have, but how that impacted you?
It had a huge impact on me. I was astounded. I was asked recently when I learned that my father was a Holocaust survivor. It's interesting. I don't have an exact memory of, when I went from, he was born in Poland and something bad happened to him, to Holocaust survivor. I'm not really sure what that was, but this was, pivotal. My brother and I, were amazed and wanted to support him, and felt like, he needed to speak more and continue his healing. And I was busy, being pregnant and then raising my child. So I wasn't, as active as I am now, but always, really supportive, and sought out when I moved to Ann Arbor and my son started to go to religious school, and sought out other 2Gs at that time. And that's been the most pivotal, I think, for me, to find those communities, and, understand more about the Holocaust and how about the impact on our parents and ourselves.
I just want to ask one more question, then we'll wrap up, just for any last thoughts that you have. But you mentioned in your acknowledgement page in your book, Sidney, that what made it feel more urgent to write this book or to get it out there was that you received a hate letter. I don't know if that's okay for me to ask, if that was something you recall.
Do you remember the hate letter that you received? Long time ago. That was one of the reasons why you wrote the book.
I don't remember.
Okay.
There was one.
I think his name was Finkel, wasn't there? There was this Holocaust
Oh,
denier.
Finkelstein. Oh, he's an idiot. And, his parents were Holocaust survivors, concentration camp Holocaust survivors, and he just downplayed everything and was against. It was like Hitler didn't, how come Hitler didn't kill enough? Because there's all those people that, he was a professor at the Loyola University, but they finally got rid of him.
Now I think I know who you're talking about when you said his name. And then just as a final thought, you know, you survived so much. I see this boy in this picture smiling. I mean, this is, I think, when the plane landed, right? That's the picture of you giving
Right.
that 1-year-old girl to your brother and or to somebody. So, I mean, how were you smiling so soon after? And I mean, what is the takeaway here for us who, you know, listen to so much tragedy? Some of us experience so much tragedy to muster and go on like you have.
It wasn't easy. It was very hard. And the smile, I don't know where it comes from, but I did not have in the beginning a happy life. It was very difficult for me. But I kept on, and I'm at the point now that my life is good. I'm happy. I have a wonderful family, and I live in a beautiful place, and have lots of people that love me. And I'm 90, going to be 92, and I'm happy.
And he's got a wonderful life companion.
Yeah, I didn't tell you that I had the tragedy in my life was my wife dying on me after 40-something years. And I mourned and mourned, and I decided I was going to live. And I went online. I went on 3 services, and I found a wonderful companion who I love dearly, and we're a great couple. And if I go today, it's okay. You know, I've lived my life. And this is wonderful. I'm happy doing this. You should have seen it yesterday. My God, those people, some of them had books from 10 years ago.
Yeah, they brought books for him to sign from, yeah. It was amazing. But this has been amazing too.
This was amazing too. It won't beat face to face though.
There's nothing like face to face. Exactly. It's
This will be
incredible.
recorded, and they didn't
Yeah.
record last night, so this will be exciting because we can share this with other people.
And now we're going to go out and have dinner,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I have Lucy pick up the tab.
Sure.
She's rich.
Well, you made all the money yesterday, so.
Can you imagine that at this university paid a lot of money?
We'll send you our bill, Michael. Thanks. We're happy to be here.
Well, I just wanted to say, it reminded me in the book, and you mentioned this before, that, you know, your mom said to live. You were the youngest, and you know, she wanted you to live, and it just reminds me that from what you said just now, that you choose life. And I think that's like kind of
Absolutely.
what I'm remembering taking with me, is everything that you mentioned in the chat. There were just messages of love and thanks and empathy for what you've experienced, because as you said, it was so hard to speak about those moments, and I don't think any of us could understand. But as much as we could be here with you to listen to your testimony and to share it with you, I think it's a blessing for all of us. So Ruth and Sidney, yeah, I just want to say thank you, and thank for everyone for being here. And I'll share those links so we can donate if you feel like you can and want to the Tucson Jewish Museum and Holocaust Center on Sidney's behalf, and also to share this testimony with others.
Thank you.
Please do that if you can.
Thank you. Amen.
It would be great.
And we hope to see you on Tuesday, November 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sidney, you're welcome to be in attendance. We would love to have you.
What's November the 14th?
It's gonna be me and the other authors.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
Sidney, this is beautiful.
And say hi to your parents.
Will do. Take care. Be well.
Good seeing them.
Bye.
Bye.